Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosvāmī Mahārāja Shri Gurudev Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashatarashata Shishimar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosvāmī Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashatarashata Shishimar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosvāmī Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Śrīla Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Nuvgoriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashatarashata Shishimar Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi Ki Jai. Titi Palankari Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Shishimar Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Śrīla Bhakti Daita Madhav Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashatarashata Shishimar Śrīla Bhakti Pramod Puri Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. Swaparshad Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dashagunath Sharda Gosvāmī Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. Namachaya Śrīla Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda Ki Jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Ram Navami Titi Ki Jai. Titi Palankari Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Ramachandra Ki Jai. Shri Lakshman Bharat Shatrugna Ki Jai. Shri Dasharat Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Kaushalya Mata Ki Jai. Sumitra Mata Ki Jai. Shri Kaikai Mata Ki Jai. Shri Hanuman Ki Jai. Shri Murari Gupta Ki Jai. Shri Ayodhya Dham Ki Jai. Shri Sita Devi Ki Jai. Shri Janak Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Ayodhya Dham Ki Jai. Ayodhya Vasi Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja Avirbhav Titi Ki Jai. Titi Palankari Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Ananta Shri Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Dandavat pranams, everybody. So I just now came from, I went to Shri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math. That's why I'm a bit later than I said I'd be this morning. I went and had darshan of the room of Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, of Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja and Śrīla Bhakti Madhav Gosvāmī Mahārāja, and then of their samadhis. And actually, would you like to, or maybe I'll show at the end. I sent some videos to Rukmanjari Didi and Rukmini Didi, and so I can show you that also. You can have darshan. And then after that, I went to Murari Gupta's place, and I'll show you a picture that I took there also. But I'll do that at the end when there's more people. So right now, in honor of the auspicious appearance day of Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, I'm going to read this book, Sweet, Sweeter, Sweetest, written by his personal servant, Śrīpāda B.S. I don't know what the S stands for, but Bhakti something, Paramādvaitī Mahārāja. His name before was Prahlāda Prabhu, and very, very nice Vaishnav. So I'm just going to, I don't have anything planned. I'm just going to skip around and read from any random places in here. So I'll just put this on. Oh wait, I'm not even sure if I'm using the mic. Oops. 1 second. Oops, I was using my my computer microphone. Here. Mic. Okay, now the sound will be better. All right, so I'm going to just put this down. Let's see. Try to make this so it faces my mouth. Maybe I'll move this down a little bit. Okay. So, this book is divided into 3 parts. That's why it's called Sweet, Sweeter, Sweetest. 1 second. Is that weird? I'm going to use prashadi flowers as a as a thing to keep this up. There. Get some more prasadi flowers. This is my mic stand. No, it's perfect. Like, see? Okay, there. All right, so this book is divided into 3 parts. Sweet, sweeter, sweetest. Let's see. The first part describes his time in, describes at the time Prahlāda Prabhu's, his time that he spent with Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja when he was traveling around and doing his active spreading the glories of Mahaprabhu and our Guru Varga during that time. And then the sweeter part is when Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, at the end of his pastimes pastimes in this world, when he went more internal. And then sweetest is all about his disappearance when he plunged us all into separation. So that's how this book is divided. That's why the title is Sweet, Sweeter, Sweetest. And I'm going to just, I didn't even read this yet. I've read parts of it last year, but I didn't read anything today. So I'm just going to skip around, but I don't actually know what I'm going to read yet. Okay, and then afterwards, maybe we can sing. Rup Manjari sent some kind of stotram about Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, so we can sing that at the end. The Peerless Master. I actually just saw Paramādvaitī Mahārāja right before I came here. Okay. Our most revered Śrīla Gurudev, Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtotarashata Śrīmāda Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja is celebrated as a crest jewel of the Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage. He is the very personification of the most illustrious mood of surrender and the perfect order carrier of his spiritual master. Richly endowed with Vaishnava ornamental qualities such as humility and simplicity, his conduct has set the highest standard of an example for all. His magnanimity is as broad as the sky and as deep as the ocean. He is an embodiment of love, care, and affection, a symbol of steadfastness, and a hallmark of devotional enthusiasm. Through his exemplary devotional traits, Śrīla Gurudev won over the hearts of all the Vaishnavas and became a recipient of the bountiful blessings of his Guru Varga. Pleased with his submission and service efforts, his Gurudev, Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtotarashata Śrīmāda Bhakti Dait Madhav Gosvāmī Mahārāja once said, "I have many disciples, but the one who lives up to my heart's satisfaction is Tīrtha Mahārāja." His humility and respect for his superiors drew the attention of many other stalwart disciples of Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtotarashata Śrīmāda Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. As some of them, for example, Srila Param Pujapad Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj and Param Pujapad Srila Bhakti Saurabh Bhakti Sar Goswami Maharaj said, Tīrtha Maharaj is a topmost Vaishnava. He is an embodiment of Mahaprabhu's 3rd verse of Shikshashtakam, Tunadapi Sunichena. Your life will become successful if you submit to him. Śrīla Gurudev considered his godbrothers as expansions of his Gurudev and offered them his sincere love and respect, thereby earning an exalted place in their hearts. while taking his name with absolute reverence, the present members of the Vaishnava community venerably rise to their feet, offering their heartfelt salutations. They regard him as an effulgent sun in the Gaudiya sky. Thus he won the accolades of the Vaishnavas of all the three generations, his Guru Varga, his Guru Bhai, his god brothers and equals, and his Shishya Varga, the disciples and followers and devotees under him. Srila Gurudev's submission to the parampara was exceptional. He was steadfastly uncompromising in following the orders of his predecessor acharyas and did not accept anyone's deviation from them. Thus, he is a true ambassador of the Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage during his time and a matchless master. Any serious votary, I don't know what votary means. Any serious votary who sincerely wants to seek the shelter of a truly bona fide guru for his own eternal welfare will undoubtedly end his search at the lotus feet of Srila Gurudev. Who in the three worlds could possibly sing the glories of a transcendental personality such as Srila Gurudev sufficiently? His virtues are unfathomable. No one has the capacity to discover the boundaries of the vast ocean of his infinite qualities, in spite of diving in it for millions of lifetimes. His glory and excellence in devotion goes on ad infinitum. Okay, so I'm going to Okay, now I'm going to just keep on reading from this. Okay, attributing all glory to Sri Guru. Śrīla Rupa Goswāmī in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu describes the qualities of a devotee in the stage of Bhav Bhakti as 1. Asaktis tar gunakyane, always eager to sing the transcendental qualities of his beloved Lord while taking immense pleasure in doing so. And 2. Pritis tar vasati stale, possessing a fondness for the places where his dearmost Lord performs his divine pastimes. A devotee is submerged by a fresh wave of ecstasy every time he sings the glories of the Lord of his heart. He seeks even the slightest of opportunities to visit those places that are lila udipak, stimulants of the transcendental pastimes. On several occasions, the followers of Srila Gurudev could witness the above qualities of Bhav Bhakti in him in relation to his Gurudev, Nitya Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Śrīmāda Bhakti Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, henceforth referred to as Śrīla Param Gurudev. His extreme fondness toward the places where Śrīla Param Gurudev had put his holy footprints and where he had established mats is beyond words. One such instance is narrated below. And here's a beautiful picture of Śrīla Bhakti Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja and Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja. I'll show you. There, you can see. Okay, so in early May 2010, Srila Gurudev was staying at Kolkata Mat. Lord Jagannath's Chandan Yatra festival was approaching. During the festival, the Lord goes on a palanquin to Chandan Sarovar for a boat ride in the evening. This continues for 21 days in Puridam. This festival is observed with great splendor at our Agratala Mat. Srila Gurudev expressed his desire to participate in this festival at Agratala Mat, and asked us, his sevaks, to book the tickets. Out of concern for his health at his advanced age, we requested him to postpone the trip. One day, Srila Gurudev invited all of us into his room and affectionately described the glories of Agratala Mat. He mentions that only by virtue of the uncommon divine qualities of his Gurudev, the place where the Agratala Mat is currently standing could be obtained. Further, he said that it would not be good if he did not go there. When we pleaded with him to postpone the trip, he said, "If you had known the glories of Gurudev and the way he procured the land in Agratala with his distinctive craft, you would certainly not say no to me. You should understand the glories of that place before advising me not to go there." He went on to describe the entire episode, And that's described in an appendix of this book. I'm not going to read that though, because we have a lot to get through. So he is showing his great resolve to visit there. Whenever we requested Srila Gurudev to postpone his trip to Agratala, he repeated its glories. However, at no point did he exhibit impatience or anger toward us. On the contrary, he took it as an opportunity to speak about the importance of the place and the extraordinary qualities of his Gurudev that had made him so successful in each of his service attempts. In this way, he would repeat those glories to us at least 2 to 3 times a day. Seeing his resolve, we finally booked flight tickets to Agratala. When we informed him of this, he was filled with delight. Nonetheless, he continued to repeat the glories of Agratala Math and his Gurudev almost every day till the date of the journey. Thus, he took immense pleasure in singing the glories of his Gurudev. After we arrived at Agratala, Srila Gurudev was extremely blissful as he related his Gurudev's pastimes in connection with that land. On May 30, 2010, he was scheduled to speak Harikatha at the evening assembly. He recited his Gurudev's unparalleled efforts several times to us during the day. In the evening, he started his Harikatha by saying, the main person behind securing this place for our mat in Agratala is our most revered Gurudev, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashrutarashata Shishimar Bhakti Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja. In the middle of Harikatha, he said, the chief minister and the revenue minister of Agratala became attracted by the extraordinary personality of our Gurudev and took a special interest in getting the Jagannath temple handed over to Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math. And toward the end of the Harikatha, he emphatically spoke, who possesses the ability to get this land? If Gurudev were not present, would it be possible? Our Gurudev is no ordinary person. After the Harikatha, he spoke the glories of his... and you want to see a picture of the ancient Jagannath deities at the Agratala Math. There. Okay. So after the Harikatha, he spoke the glories of his Gurudev to us while he was on his way to his bhajan kutir. Inside his bhajan kutir, he sat on his cot and spoke about the matchless and untiring efforts of his Gurudev to obtain the desired land in Agratala. He had related his Gurudev's unwavering service attempts umpteen times, but had not mentioned all these times the many hardships he himself had to undergo to get the land registered in the name of our Math. He would only glorify his Gurudev. He never wanted to talk about himself, how much effort he made to procure that land. He had to forgo eating, sleeping, and several other bodily necessities to fulfill his Gurudev's desire. The events that Srila Gurudev did not mention went like this. Out of his humility, he did not mention this, but now we'll find out what he did. Even though the chief government authorities were in favor of giving the lands to our Math, there were many hurdles obstructing the way. The journey from that point had not been easy. Srila Gurudev Srila Gurudev, as a secretary of the Math at that time, frequently went to the government officials at Agratala, as well as a lawyer in Kolkata, which involved traveling to both of these places several times. He also engaged in extensive written communication with the government personnel and the lawyer. During this time, he traveled extensively with Srila Param Gurudev and assisted him with his preaching efforts at various locations across India, while he also took care of other administrative duties of the Math. This continued for almost 3 years. Finally, when the actual date of handing over the responsibilities of the site came, Srila Gurudev and the government officials arrived there. However, the pujari of the temple, from whom charge of the site needed to be taken, had locked the gate and left the place. Srila Gurudev waited for him all day long without food and water. He did not even go to the restroom, fearing that the government agents might leave, using the excuse that he was not present at the particular needed moment. However, due to his persistent efforts, at last the land was registered and handed over to Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, much to the pleasure of Srila Param Gurudev. Yet, whenever he spoke about Agratala Math to us, Srila Gurudev did not mention these efforts by him. On that particular day, when he was speaking about his Gurudev in an absorbing manner inside his bhajan kutir at Agratala, I could not contain myself and suddenly spoke out of overexcitement. You also played a vital role in getting this land. You also contributed to it. However, my outburst of unsolicited speech was absolutely unacceptable to him, and he would not entertain my act of giving credit to his efforts while he was chanting the glories of his Gurudev. His lotus eyes became red with anger as he glared at me without uttering a word. Perhaps he thought that I may not be able to tolerate his chastisement at this point, but there was no need for any special admonishment anyway, as his stare alone conveyed his complete dissatisfaction with my foolishness. I had learned my first lesson. Conditioned souls, out of ignorance and false pride, think that they are the doers. They consider themselves as the heroes of a task, and think that had it not been them, the particular activity would have not become successful. On the other hand, the pure devotees understand that everything becomes possible only by the grace of Sri Guru and the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada said, "The followers of Sri Rupa Goswami do not place their faith in their own powers, but rather attribute all glory to the fountainhead of those powers." That's from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada's Patravali, Volume 3, page 89. Srila Gurudev is a legendary example of this teaching of Srila Prabhupada. We observed on numerous occasions that whenever he spoke about the efforts involved in securing the land in Agratala and Puridam, or he would ascribe everything to his Gurudev. Even though he had put forth so much personal effort at each of these places, he decried accepting any credit for himself. After participating in Lord Jagannath's Chandan Yatra festival at Agratala, Srila Gurudev attended Snana Yatra at Chakdaha, and a fortnight later partook in the Rath Yatra festival at Purushottam Dham. At Agratala, as well as Puri, he initiated sincere votaries, I think that's how you say it, into Krishna Nam and Krishna Mantra. He then returned to Kolkata and stayed there for approximately 2 months. Okay, let's see. His unprecedented mercy floods the world. Several devotees, particularly those from outside India, used to send their spiritual questions to Srila Gurudev via email or some other means, and during his free time, which was usually the time between his lunch and afternoon rest, we would hear his replies to those queries. One afternoon, when Srila Gurudev was sitting relaxed on his easy chair, I read out a question about Jiva Tattva to him. As soon as he heard it, a sense of earnestness was seen in him as he straightened his back from his leaning posture. He started his reply to the question by narrating the life story of King Bharata, who left his kingdom and family and entered the forest to perform Hari Bhajan, but became attached to a baby deer upon seeing its helpless condition. Ultimately, he became a deer in his next life because of his remembrance of the deer at the time of his death. Srila Gurudev in his reply seriously warned everyone against wasting this extremely rare but precious human birth by spending time uselessly for fulfilling material sense desires, thereby missing the ultimate target. Srila Gurudev continued, "The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna and the Jivas are eternally related to each other. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has termed this relation as Achinta Bhed Abhed. This means that the living entities are simultaneously one with and different from the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna by dint of his inconceivable potencies. When I was at home, I had several doubts about Jiva Tattva, Bhagavat Tattva, etc., and I used to write letters to my most revered Srila Gurudev. In one of his letters, he asked me to read the book Jaiva Dharma, written by Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. I went to a library at Goalpara and borrowed that book. After I studied the book thoroughly, all my doubts were clarified. You may also read that book. All your questions will be answered." It was getting late in the afternoon, so I asked Srila Gurudev to take rest. I told him that I would draft a reply and show it to him after his afternoon rest was over. He appeared to be extremely eager to show more mercy upon the questioner, and eventually on all of us. However, I urged him to take rest. Reluctantly, he rose from his easy chair and rested on his bed as the lights were dimmed. After paying my obeisances, I came out of his room and started to do some other less important activities rather than starting to draft the reply. After about 5 minutes, Srila Gurudev rang the bell, and there's a footnote here. Srila Gurudev used bells to call the sevaks if he needed any assistance from them. Initially, he did not like to use a bell to call a Vaishnav, classifying it as being impolite against a Vaishnav etiquette. He said, the Vaishnavas are servants of the mat. I am not their boss. How can I order anyone? He did not like to engage anyone in his service. He did everything himself. If there should be an absolute need for someone's assistance, he would personally go to that Vaishnava and politely ask for help. After repeated requests by the Vaishnavas for several years, he started using a bell to call the sevaks. But he never addressed his sevaks as my sevaks. Instead, he referred to them as servants of the mat, or our helpers, or our well-wishers. Okay, so back to the story. After about 5 minutes of resting, Srila Gurudev rang the bell to call me inside his bhajan kutir. I went inside and saw that he was in a thoughtful state, as he said, "There are 8,400,000 kinds of living entities, including the birds and beasts. Jalaja navalakshani stavara lakshavingshati krimayo rudra sankhya pakshinam dashalakshanam tringsa lakshani pashava chatur lakshani manushaha." That's from Sri Vishnu Purana. There are 900,000 forms of life in the water, and 2 million forms of trees and other plants. There are 1,100,000 species of insects and reptiles, and 1 million species of birds. There are 3 million varieties of beasts, and 400,000 human species. So we must pass through 8 million different forms of life before we come to the human form of life. The human birth is very rare, and one should not waste this precious opportunity. The Supreme Lord is pleased after creating the human beings because they have the capacity to worship Him. So it is unwise to squander this most valuable human birth in the pursuit of mundane pleasures. Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada said that the duty in this human birth is to endeavor for our highest eternal welfare. Labdva sudurlabhamidam bahusambhavante manushamartha damanityamapi hadhira turnam yate tanapater anumritu yavan nishreyasaya vishaya khalu sarvatasyat. That's Srimad Bhagavatam 11.9.29. After innumerable births, we have been born as human beings. Therefore, this human birth is very rare. Although it is impermanent, it bestows the highest benefit of serving the Supreme Lord and offers the opportunity to attain the highest objective permanently. It is the actual duty of all the human beings to try their utmost to achieve the highest welfare. Therefore, a person who possesses actual knowledge will endeavor for his highest eternal welfare before another death occurs, because in all other births, we only achieve connection with non-eternal worldly objects, which cause intense suffering. However, actual eternal welfare is not possible in other births. You should also write this in your reply, Srila Gurudev said. I took his permission and came out of his room to allow him a timely rest. He rang the bell one more time after 5 minutes. When I went inside, he continued, "Our most revered Param Guru Par Parma, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada spoke on the Labdva Sudurlabham verse for 1 month at Ultadanga Road, Kolkata. In spite of that, he was not fully satisfied, as he felt that he could not finish explaining the verse entirely. During one of those days, 2 students of the Scottish Church College, that's where Srila Prabhupada went to, right? So 2 students of the Scottish Church College, Kolkata, came there. Fixing a merciful glance upon them, Srila Prabhupada said that even a moment of this human birth should not be wasted without performing Hari Bhajan. The two students said that they had come only to see what was happening there, and that they had to return to their homes. In reply, Srila Prabhupada said, Turnam, immediately you should start worship of the Supreme Lord, because you may lose this rare opportunity at any moment. The two students, baffled at the force with which Srila Prabhupada was speaking to them, replied, "Oh, what if our houses burn? Who will stop the fire if we do not go there?" Srila Prabhupada then exclaimed, "Let them burn!" The students replied, "If we do not stop the fire, our neighboring houses will also be burned." To this, Srila Prabhupada emphatically stated, "Let the entire world burn. Still, you will not lose anything, because you are Brahma Bhuta, of the Lord and from the Lord. Not Jagat Bhuta. You are not of this world and from this world." Srila Gurudev continued. Later, the two students stayed in the mat. "You should write this also in your reply. It is not wise to waste this human birth uselessly." After listening to that affectionate caution, I once again paid my obeisances to him and came out of his room. Although I witnessed the sincerity with which Srila Gurudev replied to the question, I still did not sense the immediacy of my duty to draft a reply. I was sitting in the room outside of Srila Gurudev's Bhajan Kutir and engaged myself with some duties of lesser importance on my computer. Suddenly, I realized that he was trying to open the door of his room from inside. I stood up and helped him. Standing at the doorstep, looking ever more concerned and compassionate, he did not waste a second to speak out. Prahlāda Mahārāja said to the demoniac boys, "Kaumara acharit pragyo dharman bhagavatan iha durlabham manusham janma tadapya dhruvam arthadham." That's Srimad Bhagavatam 761. Prahlāda Mahārāja said, "After attaining this most rare human birth in this world, a person who is sufficiently intelligent gives up all his endeavors for temporary material pleasures and executes the principles of Bhagavat Dharma, starting from the tender age of childhood. Although this human body is temporary, it is meaningful. In other words, despite the transient nature of this human life, the practice of devotional activities, even for a moment, will award the highest welfare." With genuine affection, Srila Gurudev said softly, "The human birth is very rare. It should not be squandered in the pursuit of temporary pleasures. Those who have attained a human birth should only worship the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Do you understand? You should write this in reply to that question." I was struck with wonder and was touched in the deepest core of my heart upon seeing his causeless compassion for all the human beings. He had already stated the importance of human birth several times in reply to the question, but to re-emphasize it and to urge us toward a proper utilization of it, he had taken the pain of getting up from his bed and had walked all the way over to me. Perhaps he thought that I might get annoyed with his repeated ringing of the bell to convey the same message, or he, as Antaryami, the all-knower, understood that I had not taken his message seriously enough due to being preoccupied with other jobs. Or maybe he thought that it was his responsibility to urge everyone to perform Hari Bhajan immediately. I feel that we are not as sincere to attain our own welfare as much as he is willing to award it to us. His genuineness in every act is most profound and provides a lesson for one and all. His magnanimity is like an ocean whose beauty and vastness renders one speechless. I assisted Srila Gurudev back to his bed and came out of his room after he had retired. This time, I took his message to heart and started to draft a reply. I had proofread the draft several times and read it and kept it ready. After Srila Gurudev rose from his afternoon rest, although I am not sure whether he had so after Srila Gurudev rose from his afternoon rest, although I'm not sure whether he really had one, he immediately called me inside his room to check if I was ready with a draft. I brought my corrected draft and showed it to him. He was very quick to identify some mistakes in the draft. At a glance, he could precisely identify the areas where I was neglectful, or the places that I had not received my complete effort. Should 99% effort be accorded, then he would swiftly point out the missing 1%. He always applied extreme care and caution to each of his writings and advised everyone to follow that. He did not approve my inadequate attempt. Srila Gurudev said, "You should write in such a way that there is no possibility of ambiguity. Each word has several meanings. You should use appropriate words so that there is no scope of deviation from the true implication of what is to be conveyed." Good instructions for translation. As for Srila Gurudev's suggestions, a few corrections were implemented in the draft. He then asked me to send the answer to all the devotees, not just to the questioner alone. The next few days, he checked with me whether or not the devotees had received his reply, whether they had gone through it, whether they liked it, or if anyone wanted to know anything further in this regard. Srila Gurudev's sincerity to award true benefits to all the living beings is an example of his benevolence. It is very rare to find such an affectionate master, especially in the current age. Guravo bhavas santi shishya vita pakaraka durlavo sar gurur devi shishya santapaharaka. That's from some Purana. Lord Shiva said to Parvati, "O Devi, there are many so-called gurus who are experts in plundering their disciples' wealth, but extremely rare is a bona fide guru who can permanently remove the anxieties of his disciples." Okay, so how long have we been reading? We've been reading for 37 minutes. I'm going to skip to the section where he, a similar story to this, but when he's writing to my Srila Gurudev. So let me just find that. But yeah, this whole book looks so beautiful. Yeah, so if you want to get it, Sweeter, Sweetest. I wonder if it's available as a Kindle book. Okay, so this one I'm going to read. Okay, so this one. Tomorrow may never come. On October 10, 2010, so this is just like a couple months before my Srila Gurudev entered Nitya Leela. So on October 10, 2010, while Srila Gurudev was in, what's that? Bathinda? Or is that a Western country? I don't know where that is. Anyways, Bathinda. I received a call from a disciple of Param Pujapad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Mahārāja, referred to as Śrīla Mahārāja in this part of the work. The Acharya, he was the Acharya of Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math. I was informed about the grave illness of Śrīla Mahārāja. I received a complete health update from a personal caretaker of Śrīla Mahārāja before I, along with Sri Rasbihari Prabhu of Jammu, conveyed the message to Srila Gurudev in brief. However, he was very keen to know the details in their entirety, as he kept asking questions till he received the full update of Śrīla Mahārāja's health. Yeah, and Srila Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja and my Gurudev were extremely close with each other. There's many pictures of them sitting next to each other. Every year they would, I noticed that like every year when we'd go to Chaitanya Gaudiya Math during our Navadvip Parikrama, I'd see how affectionate they were with each other, like really like two buddies, really close. So yeah, he was very keen to know the details in their entirety as he kept asking questions till he received the full update of Śrīla Mahārāja's health. At his behest, a telephone conversation with Sri Madhav Maharaj, the personal caretaker of Śrīla Mahārāja, was arranged. He felt marginally relieved when Sri Madhav Maharaj said that there had been some improvement in Śrīla Mahārāja's health over the past few days. Srila Gurudev spoke to him about Śrīla Mahārāja's tireless preaching efforts, which included extensive travels around the globe. He also reminisced about Śrīla Mahārāja's visit to Sri Vinodvani Gaudiya Math in Vrindavan a few years ago, and their meetings on several other occasions in the past. He then told Sri Madhav Maharaj that the devotees should take good care of him and try their utmost to offer him the best treatment. He further advised him that the devotees should not give up their efforts, with the understanding that Śrīla Maharaj had mercifully granted this service opportunity to them. Ah, beautiful. Srila Gurudev returns to Kolkata in December. Okay, so this is the month that my Srila Gurudev entered Nitya Lila. So Srila Gurudev returns to Kolkata in December, after more than a 3-month Punjab and Assam tour. A few days later, Sri Madhav Priya Prabhu, another personal caretaker of Śrīla Maharaj, phones me and asks me to submit his request at the feet of Srila Gurudev. Madhav Priya Prabhu said, if his time and health allowed, could he kindly write a few words about Śrīla Maharaj for a special issue of our magazine that was to be published in February 2011? After Srila Gurudev had taken his breakfast on the following day, I submitted this request to him. I also told him that he could write leisurely, as there was time before it needed to be published. Yeah, there's like more than 2 months. Like 3 months, because that's when my Gurudev's guest puja is. He inquired for me about the latest health update of Śrīla Maharaj and said that he would certainly want to write a few affectionate words to Śrīla Maharaj. I left his bhajan kutir after he sat near his study table, as he did on other days. At approximately 11 a.m., I went inside his bhajan kutir to see if Srila Gurudev was ready to take his bath. I found that he was writing a letter to Śrīla Maharaj with intense absorption. Therefore, I came out without disturbing him. When I checked again after half an hour, he showed me a partially drafted letter and asked if it was all right. I nodded my head and urged him to take his bath, but he was in a fervent mood to complete the letter. Here's a picture of him writing a letter. Okay. I left the room only to return after another 15 minutes or so, and found Srila Gurudev still at the peak of his concentration, wanting to be left undisturbed. The frequency of my visits into his bhajan kutir increased as I started to feel restless. He had to finish many other activities before he had his lunch and medicines. I started to make noise during each of my visits. He would momentarily stare at me as though to stop. He would momentarily stare at me through the top of his eyes, without even lifting his head. My restlessness annoyed him, as it disturbed his concentration, but he did not say anything to me. Almost after 1 p.m., Srila Gurudev got up from his study table. He wanted me to see what he had written. I was very anxious about the impact of the delay upon his schedule, so I told him, Guruji, it is already very late. You have to take your lunch and medicines at the proper time. Otherwise, it will not be good for your health. I can see the letter later. Srila Gurudev had been observing my restlessness for quite some time, and now, when I urged him to stop this service and continue with his other routine duties, he angrily said, If you have taken up a responsibility, then you should fulfill it. What is the use of taking it up only for the sake of it? If you cannot do it, then do not take up the responsibility at all. And if you've done so, then commit yourself to it. It is not good to do anything in a hurry. I humbly replied, But Guruji, we have about 2 months to submit the letter. It is not urgent. Because this is when my Gurudev was still on this planet, before he entered Nitya Lila. And this is going to be for his Vyas Puja festival. Srila Gurudev categorically said, It is better to do it now, as I could fall sick tomorrow, or something else could happen. I might have to leave the body at any time, so it is not good to procrastinate. If a responsibility is taken up, it should not be left unfinished. I was completely dumbstruck by that reply from Srila Gurudev. Generally, we speak to others that we are not the body.
This body is impermanent. But when it comes to practice, we are very far from the ideal. We do not grasp the urgency of performance of Hari Bhajan. We tend to have a laid-back approach to devotional activities, postponing them to some other day. However, through these pastimes, Srila Gurudev taught that one should exhibit serious intent and earnestness to perform devotion. Do not delay in doing something that one could do today. Do not procrastinate, as tomorrow may never come. He also suggested that when one commits oneself to a service activity, do it without worrying about the world of other things to do. Do whatever you do with the utmost sincerity and ensure its completion. Whenever we do any service activity, we should do it without worrying about anything else, about the world, anything that's going on. We do it with utmost sincerity and ensure its completion. On his order, I went through the letter written by him. What I saw in those distinctive words was his affection toward the Vaishnavas. He seemed to have recollected all of the memories of his past meetings with Śrīla Maharaj while he was expressing his thoughts in the letter. Having delved into the actual reality of the events, it took him a couple of hours to compose the letter. The affectionate warmth of the words he used in the letter was sublime. He would not easily give up until he found the appropriate words. He would never compromise just to save time for something else. His sincerity in every activity is an example for everyone. Srila Gurudev wrote the following affectionate letter, translated from Bengali to Srila Maharaj. So, yeah, this is his letter translated from Bengali. I'll read it now. So this is Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, December 19, 2010. Oh wow, so this is just like 10 days before my Gurudev entered Nitya Lila. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Chakratirtha. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Damodarju. Responding to Pujapad response. Colon. Pujapad Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, who has resided at Shri Keshavji Gaudiya Math, Kangsatila, and Shri Rupsanatan Gaudiya Math, Sevakunj. Wow, this isn't even such a long letter. It's like only 2 paragraphs, but it took him 2 hours because he wrote it so carefully. Remembrances of the affection you showed me are still so fresh in my heart, even though, in all respects, I am unworthy of such affection. Remembrance of how you received me at your own place, Shri Keshavji Gaudiya Math, Kangsatila, and how you wholeheartedly enthused me and made all kinds of efforts for my welfare, must also be engraved on the canvas of your memory. Although we all became grief-stricken at the sad news of your grave illness, upon hearing that, by Sri Krishna's desire, you have recovered somewhat, we all feel heartened and encouraged. You also might have heard the news of my grave illness. 5 stents were inserted during an angioplasty to open artery blockages. The doctor has advised me to take proper regular rest. My movements have been checked. I have a desire to meet with you. If you so desire, then everything is possible. Please accept my unlimited prostrated obeisances. Das Abhas, semblance of a servant. Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha. 10 days after this affectionate letter was delivered, on December 29, 2010, I received a message in the morning that Param Pujapad Śrīla Maharaj had left his body at 3 a.m. At around 9:30 a.m., after Srila Gurudev took his breakfast, I conveyed the message of Śrīla Maharaj's departure from this world. As soon as he heard this, he was shocked and said, "Left the body? I was informed that his health had improved, had it not?" I said that there had been a marginal improvement in Śrīla Maharaj's health, but that was only for a short time, and now he had left his body. Srila Gurudev then answered, "Everyone has to leave one day. At any moment, anything might happen. This or that cause is merely instrumental." He indicated that by leaving this world, the devotees instruct us that this world is not a permanent place of residence. Srila Gurudev then remembered that he had recently written an affectionate letter to Srila Maharaj and inquired about it. I said that Srila Maharaj had received the letter, and after reading his remark, I have the desire to meet with you, Srila Maharaj replied that if Krishna desires it, then it will be possible. Srila Gurudev said, now it is not possible. After a while, he continued, it is not that it is impossible, it happens on certain occasions. Srila Narottam Das Thakur got the direct audience of Srila Rupa Goswami, although the latter had disappeared by that time. Srila Rupa Goswami also fed milk to Srila Narottam Das Thakur. The Lord and his associates are eternal. Their bodies are not material. They can appear anywhere at any time, provided the prayers to them are sincere. In hindsight, it appears that Srila Gurudev was aware of the urgency to send his affectionate letter to Srila Maharaj as soon as he was asked to do so. He knew very well that he might not get another opportunity, as he had previously said, I might fall sick tomorrow or anything else might happen, so it is not good to procrastinate. Had he postponed the activity of writing the letter to some other day, all of us would not only have been deprived of witnessing this final loving exchange between these two brothers, but also of the message from him that an opportunity needs to be availed of as soon as it reveals itself, because no one can be sure of what the next moment might bring. An opportunity once lost may be lost forever. Therefore, it is not wise to procrastinate our bhajan until some other day. Okay, so we've been reading for 52 minutes. This is so beautiful, this book. I want to read more, but I'm going to stop here because, yeah, it's getting late. It's already 8:35 p.m. here, so anyhow, I highly recommend this book, Sweet, Sweeter, Sweetest. I'm not sure where it's available, so I don't know where to direct you, but yeah, really nice book. Oh, and something I wanted to show you, the darshan. I just came from, as I mentioned, from Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math and Murari Gupta's place. That's why I started late. So I sent a video to Rup Manjari and Rukmini Didi. That's and so I'll also show you a video here. Okay. Oh wait, let me 1 second. I'll wait for this to download, but let me just check the settings so that you can hear audio. Okay, echo cancellation is off. That's good. Wait, let's see if I can make this bigger. We are at Chaitanya Gaudiya Math right now. Sorry. Srila Bhakti Madhav Goswami. This is Srila Bhakti Madhav Goswami Mahārāja's Bhajan Kutir. And then I'll go to his Srila Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja's Bhajan Kutir. Those are my parents there. Okay, so wait, hopefully you could all see that. Oh, that's my dad. That's my mother. Okay, so and then I also went to his let's see, other video. Oops. Okay, there's one more video. I just saw a very interesting. Oh. Yeah, did you ever know this is a new thing that they. Look, Giriraj Govardhan. See, they made this huge Giriraj Govardhan there. Let me make a video. Isn't that cool? Yeah, they just built that recently, I guess. I mean, I never noticed it before. And then after that, I went to Murari Gupta's place. I'll show you a picture there. This is just now, right before I started reading. It's Murari Gupta's Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. All right. So yeah, there at Murari Gupta's place, we did kirtan. We sang the Ramachandrashtakam, which is written by Murari Gupta, and then we read Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja's what he wrote about Murari Gupta in his book Gaur Parshad Charitavali. So, all right. So, oh, there's one more thing. She shared with me some kind of stotram. It's called the Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Dvadashakam. There's no diacritics, so I might mess up with the pronunciation. But let me share my screen again, and we can sing that together, and then we'll end. It's written by Bhakti Ujjwal Muni Maharaj. I don't know who that is. But okay. So, Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja Gosvāmī Dvadashakam. Let me make it a little smaller. Yeah. One second. Oops. I was wondering what was going on. There. Okay. Okay, what's the meter for this? Let's see. Pranamami Sada Guru Tīrtha. Okay, it's the same as Prabhupada Paramādvaitī. Maybe I'll read the translation and then we sing it. I always offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of Gurudev Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, who was born in the farthest Assam, and engaged in education from childhood, and who appeared as the son of a most merciful and most generous person, who by worshipping the best amongst Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva, is fixed in divine quality of worshipping the Vaishnavas. I always offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of Gurudev, Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, whose bodily limbs are very soft like a champak flower, and are golden, whose lotus face is effulging with a sweet, gentle laughter, and whose heart is contented, who, well adorned with the qualities of control over his senses and humbleness, has accepted the sannyas order of life. I always offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of Gurudev Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, who is the dearest disciple Śrīla Bhakti Dayit Madhav Gosvāmī Mahārāja, who earns a lot of respect as the best servitor in the congregation of our Guru Varga, and is respected in the entire Vaishnav community. I always offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of Gurudev Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, who, like Śrīla Raghunath Das Goswami, was immensely distressed, apprehending the disappearance of his spiritual master, Lord Chaitanya's expansion, Śrīla Bhakti Dayit Madhav Gosvāmī Mahārāja, and thus took shelter of Giriraj Govardhan, who is maintaining his life only to fulfill the desires of Lord Chaitanya and Śrīla Gurudev. I always offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of Gurudev Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, who has completed all the work of the birthplace of Srila Prabhupada Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, started by his spiritual master Srila Bhakti Dayat Madhav Goswami Maharaj. Also, Srila Bhakti Goswami Maharaj was very instrumental in that, and has earned a special reputation by fulfilling the innermost desires of his Guru and Mahaprabhu's devotees, who, by virtue of his qualities of modesty, etc., is very dear to Lord Hari. I always offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, who, by manifesting the greatness and magnificence of his Gurudev, is the emblem of his dignity, his eminence, whose greatness is effulgent like the sun, who is always endeavoring for the protection and management of mat mandirs, and who is always drinking the nectar of spiritualism. I always offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of Gurudev Srila Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, who is engrossed in ecstatic dancing and singing Lord Hari, who in the mood of Vrindavan has retained Lord Gaur Hari in his heart, who is engaged in observing various festivities like Anukut, etc., as per Vedic injunctions, thus give pleasure to all the devotees. I always offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of Gurudev Srila Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, by whom all the desires of his Gurudev were fulfilled, who has been very fortunate to establish and maintain the place where Mahaprabhu visited in Kumudvan in the holy land of Vraj. I always offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, who, by following the path of Srila Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and Thakur Bhakti Vinod, has taken shelter of the highest quality of devotional service, who, by practicing the devotional path, has taught and preached for the good of all, who is elegant by being more tolerant than a tree. I always offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of Gurudev Srila Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, who, to obey the orders of Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, proceeded to the western countries for the benefit of mankind, who, by spreading Lord Chaitanya's divine message of love of Godhead, is bringing good fortune to the whole world. I offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of Gurudev Srila Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Goswami Maharaj, whose transcendental birth is on the same day as of Lord Ramachandra. This holy date, Navami Tithi, of all kinds of good fortune, bliss, happiness, mercy, and gives firm faith in devotional practice. O exalted sannyasi, Srila Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Goswami Mahārāja, O auspicious desire tree, at the end of this prayer, I humbly pray unto you to kindly forgive all my offenses. O magnanimous one, you are fully capable of maintaining your surrendered beings. Thus, by your mercy, kindly give me unalloyed, one-pointed eternal devotion unto the lotus feet of Srila Gurudev. Okay, so sing this and then we'll end for today. Just checking. Okay, looks like everything's good. Asamahina vasahi patyarase Danadatri shiro maniputra shubham Shiva pujana sadhana shuddha gunam Pranamami sada Guru Tīrtha Param Jito mala champaka goratanum Mriduhasya mukojvala Tushta hridam Shamadainya gunam yati veshadaram Pranamami sada Guru Tīrtha Param Prabhu Madhava Deva Kashavaram Guru Goshti Samadhara Dasya Param Sujanadrita Shamsana Puja Padam Pranamami Sada Guru Tīrtha Param Viraharta Guror Giri Rajatate Brigupataya iha Raghunatha Samam Harisevaka Puraka Pranadritam Pranamami Sada Guru Tīrtha Padam Nukarya Ratam Prabhupada
grihe Orajanepsita kirtidaram Vinayadi gunar harivalabhatam Pranamami sada Guru Tīrtha padam Guru Gaurava Bhaskara Deepam Matha Mandira Rakshana Yatna Yutam Paramartarasamrita Panaratam Pranamami Sada Guru Tīrtha padam Hari Kirtana Nartana Malamatim Vrajabhava Vibhavita Gaura Hridam Girirādhana Modana Parvayutam Pranamami Sada Guru Tīrtha param Prabhu Madhavam Ipsita Kritya Kirtam Charanankita Gora Padam Sukirtam Kumudakyavana Sevanam Subhagam Pranamami Sada Guru Tīrtha param Ragurupaka Bhakti Vinoda Patam Bhajanorjita Naishtika Shanda param Tarudikrita Shobhana Dharya Dharam Pranamami Sada Guru Tīrtha padam Mukha Parma Puri Vachana Sorry guys. Mukha Parma Puri Vachana Dharanam Tava Paschima Desha Shubham Gamanam Pratipadana Gorakatam Amalam Pranamami Sada Guru Tīrtha param Raghunatha Sujanmatito Navamim Satito Sajananam Guru Tīrtha varam Shubhadam Shamadam Rasadam Sadayam Pranamami Sada Guru Tīrtha param Yati Tīrtha Guru Shiva Kalpataro Kripaya Kshamatam Vrijinam Satatam Sharanagata Palaka Pada Vibho Maidheya Chiram Guru Bhakti Sada Pranamami Sada Guru Tīrtha param 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 Jaya Bhakti Ballabha Śrīla Tīrtha Gosvāmī Bhakti Ballabha Śrīla Tīrtha Gosvāmī Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Gaur Hari Bol Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki Jai Nityalapa Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashita Shishimar Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shri Gurudev ki Jai Nityalapa Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashita Shishimar Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki Jai Nityalapa Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashita Shishimar Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada ki Jai Nityalapa Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashita Shishimar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki Jai Nityalapa Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashita Shishimar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki Jai Nityalapa Vishta Maha Bhagavat Shri Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai Nityalapa Vishta Shri Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai Nityalapa Vishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai Shri Rupa Anuga Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath
Shri Jeev Gopala Bhattadasha Gunath Tīrtha Gosvāmī Prabhu ki jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai, Naam Acharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund ki jai, Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai, Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Shri Ram Navami Titi ki jai, Titi Palan Kari Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Ramachandra ki jai, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai, Maharaj Dasharath, Kaushalya Sumitra Kai Mata ki jai. I always have a hard time saying. Shri Hanuman ki jai, Shri Sita Devi ki jai, Janak Maharaj ki jai, Ayodhya Dham ki jai, Shri Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shishimad Śrīla Bhakti Ballabha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Todiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki jai, Śrīla Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Śrīla Bhakti Daita Madhav Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Śrīla Bhakti Pramod Puri Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai, Swaparshad Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranams, everybody. Thank you for joining me in this reading. And I'll see you all. Nobody went. Yeah. Anyways, I'll see you all tomorrow for the Srimad Bhagavatam reading. We're going to finish the chapter, and then the next chapter is the story of Pingala. We're reading about the 24 gurus. But I think there's like 3,000 words left in the chapter. So after we finish reading Srimad Bhagavatam, then I would like to read a little bit more Ram Katha from my Śrīla Gurudev. So all the rest of the time, the rest of the hour of our daily reading, we'll hear from my Śrīla Gurudev the glories of Ram and Sita and Hanuman, Lakshman, like that. All right, see you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe. Yeah, it's strange though. I thought there was, anyways, there's only 2 people who've been watching. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me. Jai Shri Radhe.